We're starting off in Greece. We're going to Brussels to talk about Greece, where we have Stephen Fidler, who is going to tell us how this is all going so smoothly, and any second now it's going to be done. Right, Stephen?
Well, there are quite a few things that have to come into play here. It's like a very intricately choreographed exercise. And the meetings today in Athens are really about can they sort of get a political buy-in, a buy-in from the political parties to the proposed deal that the Troika, the IMF, the EU and the ECB have put before them. So it's a day for political buy-in or not in Athens, and there has been some balking there at some of the conditions that are going to be imposed for as the price of this second Greece bailout.
And then, Stephen, you know, the clock is ticking here. I mean, we're just a month away from a point where Greece would effectively default on its next debt payment. Is there any additional sense of urgency on the part of Greek leadership than we might have seen a week ago, a month ago, 6 months ago?
I mean, I think there is, but of course it's just the very fact that the deadline is coming, and they need to make this bond exchange, which is not something that they can do overnight. That is actually sort of keeping the feet to the fire of all the parties here, including the Greeks. And the Greek politicians are thinking very much of the election that they have got coming up, possibly in April, and they don't want to commit themselves to anything that's going to harm them in that electoral battle. So they've got a very complicated analysis, a cost-benefit analysis to do here.
Yeah, you know, Stephen, I don't think you could see it, but we're just showing some images of some of the clashes in the streets in Greece. And you talked about, you know, reticence. It seems like the people on the street are very reticent about this deal, and the left-wing parties that stand to gain in those elections are reticent. I mean, what are the odds that we don't get this deal? I mean, the cuts, that the austerity measures they're talking about are really very draconian, and will, as far as I can see, will only push the country deeper into a recession, really a depression. I mean, that's what's holding all this up, isn't it?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think there's a sense around here, not only in Greece, that we're reaching the sort of limits of austerity, and that the downward spiral that sort of further government cutbacks could cause makes it almost too difficult for Greece to kind of handle, which is, I think, why there's been more emphasis on sort of getting Greece's debt down, reducing it, so the burden of paying the creditors is not as high as it was. So I think there has been a shift in the discussion. You know, on the probabilities of a default, of getting this deal done, I would still say it's more. I would say at this point it's more likely than not, just because the alternative is very. Well, we're just sort of walking into the unknown. I think the question will longer term be, if this deal is done, you know, how long will it hold? You know, months, a year? You know, how long will the deal last? So I think that's a longer term question. I think shorter term, we're probably more likely to get a deal than not in the coming weeks, say.
Well, and Stephen, that sense of complacency is reflected here in the United States, where our markets have been rallying despite what's taken place there. Is the rest of the European Union equally complacent that something will get done?
I think what's happened is, since the ECB stepped into the bank market in December, the sort of nexus that was there, this kind of downward spiral and the link between the weak banks and the weak sovereigns in Europe, that's been broken, and there's been a lot more sort of, I wouldn't say optimism, but much less pessimism around since then. I think the idea is also that they can expand the bailout funds available now, possibly in the next few months, so that the firewall against future crises grows. I think the combination of the two things, and the idea that sort of Greece event risk is out of the way, is contributing to a sense of optimism, or at least, to diffuse some of the huge pessimism that was around at the end of last year.